I'll never forget the night my adopted sister, Clara, humiliated me in front of our entire family. It was supposed to be a peaceful family dinner, a rare gathering after months apart. But instead, it turned into one of the most painful nights of my life. We were all sitting around the long oak table at my parents' house, laughter, chatter, the smell of roasted chicken filling the air. For a moment, it felt like we were a normal family again. Then Clara decided to remind everyone that I was different. "Pass the salt, Maya," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Oh wait, I forgot, you don't even know how to cook, right? Guess it's good you were adopted, Mom needed someone to clean up after us." The whole table went silent. My mother, Margaret, pretended not to hear. My father, Edward, just cleared his throat and kept cutting his food. I froze, staring at Clara, my fork halfway to my mouth. My face burned, and I wanted to disappear. Clara smirked, loving every second of my humiliation. "That's not true," I managed to whisper, trying to smile it off. But she kept going. "Oh, come on, Maya. Don't act so sensitive. We all know you're not really family. I mean, you got lucky Mom and Dad took pity on you." A few cousins snickered. My aunt shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to scream. Instead, I swallowed the lump in my throat and said quietly, "You've said enough, Clara." Her response? A laugh that cut straight through me. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my old room and cried. Not because of what she said, but because of how everyone else stayed silent. My parents had always treated Clara like the golden child. She was beautiful, confident, and born to them. I was the quiet one, the adopted one, the lucky addition who should be grateful just to be there. I loved them deeply. But deep down, I always knew I was loved differently. I remembered being 12 when I first overheard my mother whisper to a friend on the phone. "She's sweet, but she'll never be like Clara. You can't replace blood." That line replayed in my head for years. So I worked harder, got good grades, helped around the house, stayed out of trouble, all just to prove I belonged. But no matter what I did, Clara always made sure I remembered my place. Fast forward to that family dinner, the breaking point. 4 days afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way she laughed. The silence that followed. I decided that night I was done being the quiet one. A few weeks later, my father called me unexpectedly. His voice sounded weak. "Maya, your mother, and I want you to come home this weekend. There's something important we need to discuss." When I arrived, I noticed how frail he looked. Years of stress had worn him down. My mother barely met my eyes. Clara was already there, wearing a silk dress and that same smug smile. I had a bad feeling. We sat in the living room, the same room where we celebrated birthdays and Christmas mornings. Dad cleared his throat and said, "Girls, I've been reviewing some things lately, our will, the family business, the house." Clara immediately interrupted. "Oh, Dad, you don't have to worry. I'll take care of everything when the time comes." He looked at her calmly. "Actually, that's what I wanted to talk about." The silence was deafening. Mom's hands trembled slightly. "Maya," Dad said, turning to me, "I want you to know how proud I am of you. You've shown nothing but kindness and hard work your whole life." I blinked, unsure where this was going. Clara frowned, crossing her arms. "And that's why," he continued, "I've decided to leave the majority of my estate, including the family home and business, to you." The room froze. Clara's jaw dropped. "What? Are you kidding me?" Mom looked stunned but didn't speak. Dad sighed. "Clara, you've always had opportunities handed to you. Maya earned everything through her actions. This is my decision." I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I whispered, "Dad. I don't know what to say." He smiled faintly. "Just say you'll take care of what I built." Clara exploded. "This is insane. She's not even your real daughter. How could you give my inheritance to her?" Her words stabbed through me. But for the first time, Dad didn't stay silent. His tone turned sharp, the kind of voice that used to stop us cold when we were kids. "She may not share our blood, Clara," he said firmly, "but she's shown more heart, respect, and loyalty than you ever have." Clara went pale. "You can't do this," she whispered. Dad just looked away. That night, I sat outside on the porch, staring at the stars. My heart was heavy. I didn't want to take anything from Clara. I just wanted to belong, to be treated as family. But maybe, for once, the universe had finally seen my pain. A week later, my father passed away in his sleep. The funeral was small but emotional. Clara cried loudly, almost theatrically, while I stayed quiet, holding my mother's hand. When the lawyer gathered us afterward for the will reading, the air was tense. I could feel Clara's glare burning through me. As the lawyer read out the details, the room seemed to spin. Everything Dad said that day was true. I inherited the house, half his savings, and control of his business shares. Clara got a smaller portion. She lost it completely. "This is unfair," she shouted. "You manipulated him, didn't you? You tricked him before he died." Everyone looked at her in shock. Even Mom's face went red. I stood up slowly, my voice calm. "I didn't trick anyone, Clara. Dad made his own choice. Maybe you should think about why he made it." She glared at me with tears in her eyes. "You'll regret this, Maya. I'll make sure of it." The months that followed were strange. I tried to help her, offered to share parts of the inheritance, but she refused. Instead, she spread rumors, told distant relatives I had schemed for money, that I wasn't even grateful. I kept silent, just as I always had. But karma? It doesn't need an audience. A year later, Clara's own choices began to catch up to her. She had mismanaged her part of Dad's investments, spending carelessly, trying to show off her success. The debts piled up. Meanwhile, I worked tirelessly, learning how to handle the business, managing employees, and slowly restoring what my father had built. I hired good people, treated them with respect, and donated a portion of the profits to orphan support programs, something I knew would have made Dad proud. Then, one evening, as I was closing my office, Clara showed up. Her face looked tired, her eyes dull. She wasn't the glamorous sister I once knew. "Maya," she said quietly. "Can we talk?" I hesitated but nodded. She sat down across from me, her voice trembling. I'm sorry. For everything. I was jealous. You were always so calm, so good. I thought if I made you look small, I'd feel better about myself." Tears filled her eyes. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to say she deserved what happened, the pain, the loss, the realization. But another part of me, the part that still remembered being that scared adopted girl, couldn't hate her anymore. So I just said, softly, "I forgive you." She broke down crying. We sat in silence for a long time. That night, I went home and looked around the house, the same one where I'd once felt like a stranger. Now, it finally felt like mine. Not because of the inheritance, but because I had found peace. For years, I thought family was about blood. But it's really about love, loyalty, and respect. Clara eventually turned her life around, found a job, started volunteering. We were never as close as true sisters, but there was finally understanding. Sometimes I still think about that dinner, her cruel words, the laughter, the silence. If only she knew how that moment would change everything. And maybe, just maybe, she finally did. Because when Mom passed a few years later, she left a note for both of us. It said, "Family isn't born. It's chosen." When I read those words, I smiled through tears. Everything had come full circle. So if you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, if you've been mocked, ignored, or made to feel small, please remember. Your worth isn't determined by anyone's opinion. Sometimes, life has a quiet way of delivering justice, when you least expect it. What would you do if someone humiliated you like that in front of your whole family? Would you stay quiet, or let karma speak for you? Can you believe this actually happened? And that, right there, is my story, the night my adopted sister insulted me at the family dinner. And how she never expected the will to favor me in the end. Because sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply being chosen when others thought you never would be.